Alligators in the sewers? Well, actually, it can happen, and it has happened, as we will see in today's movie, Alligator. Released in 1980 and directed by Louis Teague. The film stars Robert Forster, who would later go on to star in several major Hollywood films, including the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown, as well as making a very memorable appearance on Breaking Bad. Speaking of Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston, yes, Walter White himself, actually worked as a production assistant for this film and is responsible for some of the gore effects. There's a really neat behind-the-scenes interview of him discussing the film as well. I recommend checking that out sometime. Back to the film though, Alligator is an absolute blast and one of my all-time favorite creature features. The overall premise behind this film is actually based around a real-life urban legend going back to the 1930s, revolving around gators apparently living in the sewer systems of New York City. Alligator was a part of a trend of films known as Jaws exploitation films. You see, when Steven Spielberg presented the world with his 1975 blockbuster, Jaws, Hollywood became fascinated with making killer underwater creature features. Aside from the numerous Jaws ripoffs that came in its wake, we got Orca in 1977, Joe Dante's Piranha in 1978, and then this movie. Despite belonging to this genre, Alligator does manage to set itself apart from many of these other films by embracing its ridiculous concept and being somewhat self-aware without making the movie a complete parody as well. The film opens up with a close-up shot of an alligator. See, the title says it all. As the camera pans back, we see this guy attempting to sneak up on the gator when in the blink of an eye, it spins around and tears his head off. Just kidding. Actually, it turns out this is just a gator wrestling venue. It's not exactly established whether this is a zoo or something else, but regardless, the wrangler manages to trip on a log and fall, which leads to the gator getting the jump on him. It tears his leg up pretty good, but thankfully his fellow crew members come to his aid in time, and are able to fend off the attacking reptile. So this little girl has come here with her family, and I guess we can just chalk this next part down to it being a much different time back then, because there are literally vendors at this event that are selling live baby alligators to anybody. She convinces her parents to let her adopt the little guy, whom she names Ramon.
Chicago remains in chaos this morning. Hundreds of rioters disrupted the 1968 Democratic Convention.
So I watched this movie on the recently released Blu-ray from Shout Factory, and it's still damn near impossible to decipher most of the dialogue in this sequence. Basically, the parents get into some kind of scuffle. I guess the dad was drunk or something, and being a douchebag, he decides to take the little gator, who's literally just sitting in his tank minding his own business by the way, and flushes him down the toilet. But don't worry, he doesn't die. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a movie. 12 years later, we get to meet our main protagonist of the film, Officer Madison, played by Robert Forster. He's here buying a puppy, as well as doing a little low-key detective work on this shady pet shop owner. In addition to being shady, the owner also feels the need to remind Madison of the fact that he is indeed going bald.
What are you looking at?
The patch on the back, the thinning of the front, you know what I mean? Same thing, you know?
Yeah.
Madison soon gets called to a sewage plant where the mutilated remains of a city worker are found.
We got a big toe in the morgue once. Nothing else, just a big toe. Yeah. Never found the rest of them. But we figured out who it was. Had a funeral and everything. It's been a pretty small casket.
Have I mentioned how much I love the dialogue in this film? Madison meets up with his chief to investigate a dead dog that has also washed up in the same sewage plant. The dog's owner is there as well, and she is able to identify him, despite little Muffy having damn near tripled in size since she lost him.
Looks exactly like Taffy, but it's way too big. You know, she has the same markings, the same color, everything. This fit her 2 months ago when I lost her.
This sweater fit this dog?
We then check back with our shady pet store owner, who is out scouting the streets for stray dogs that he corrals into his van and brings back to this pharmaceutical company. This is Arthur. He's second in command here at Slade Pharmaceutical, and he and his pet store buddy here are basically some of the worst human beings I've seen in just about any film ever.
You ought to lay low for a while, huh?
Gotcha, I need a lot more animals. The old man's breathing down my neck for results. Now get cracking.
Right. Puppies.
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 Wow. Please die, both of you. Thankfully, we do not have to wait until the third act of the film to see one of these pieces of crap die. So we go to the pet store owner carrying a cart full of dead test dogs and garbage bags to a sewer entrance where he intends to dispose of them. Little does he know, though, he is not alone. That's right, this is Ramon's turf, baby, and he does not take too kindly to strangers nor animal abusers. Boy, is this guy gonna be in for a surprise. Soon after, the severed arm of the man washes up and is discovered, and here Madison is able to identify the victim as the shop owner, based on the shredded remains of the shirt he was wearing. After being questioned briefly by Madison, Arthur meets with the old creep who runs the genetics company, Slade Pharmaceutical, who looks like an elderly Lex Luthor but talks like Kermit the Frog.
Don't talk to any reporters.
Back at the police station, we get this random-ass scene.
Sir?
Yeah?
I killed a man in the sewer.
Madison. Well, if you give us a second, I'll take you down to Sergeant Reynolds. He'll take your confession.
No, sir, I didn't come to confess. I came to kill the rest of you. I'm wired to explode. You too. Don't move. Your time is running out. I cut him up with my mat knife. Told me to. On the radio. On the radio.
Fortunately, they're able to subdue the lunatic and disarm the bomb. Random as it may seem, though, this particular scene does have one important role when it comes to the climax of this movie, but we'll get to that later on. Afterwards, Madison, along with his new partner Kelly here, go into the sewer system to do some investigating, near the area where the pet shop owner was attacked and killed earlier. After a little bit of wandering around, we get what is actually a really neat little tease of the alligator's face, as Kelly focuses his flashlight on the map he is reading.
There you go, unroll it one more. That's it.
The two men don't find much in the way of evidence, but it does get established in a throwaway line by Madison that this section of the sewer contains several pockets of methane gas. After some chit-chatting, the two round a corner and literally come face to face with our toothy friend. I love how so far we've only been getting little glimpses of the gator here and there. It really does a good job of making us eager to see the full thing, while still leaving some of the guesswork to the audience's imagination. They make it to the top of a ladder, but there's a manhole at the top, and the crawl space is only large enough to accommodate one person. So Kelly, who is forced to stand at the bottom while Madison attempts to push the top open, gets snatched by the hungry gator. After an unknown period of time, Madison wakes up in the hospital and is immediately bombarded by this annoying reporter Kemp, who kind of reminds me of a Tanner Topher Grace for some reason. He's here to shit-talk Madison about having lost another partner, but don't worry, he'll be dead soon enough.
Here you lost another partner.
You got no comment on that?
You know, that's getting to be a habit with you.
The chief, while more compassionate towards Madison than Kemp, is still skeptical about the whole ordeal. Madison gets discharged from the hospital, and him and the chief pay a visit to a local herpetologist. That's someone who studies reptiles for a living, not herpes for all you first graders out there. This is Marissa, who's actually the little girl we saw at the start who bought the baby alligator. Despite hearing out Madison's story, she is also left skeptical and informs them both that even if the gator managed to make its way into the sewer system, it would have a hard time surviving or even growing very large with the lack of sunlight and natural food. Meanwhile, Kemp decides to go do some investigating of his own in the part of the sewer where Kelly and the shop owner were both killed. He comes across the partially eaten carcass of a dog, and as he kneels down to snap some pictures, is ambushed and killed by the cameraman. Nah, just kidding. It's Ramon again, whom, just like the audience, can immediately recognize a douchebag when he sees one. Thankfully, Kemp's camera continues taking pictures throughout his entire death, and the police are able to recover the film, leading to some shocking proof. So, news begins to spread about the giant man-eating gator at large in the Chicago sewers. The police, along with Marissa and Madison, arrange a plan to flush the gator out of the sewer into this roadblock where they can hopefully blow it away with automatic weapons. However, it appears that Ramon is a tad smarter than the police had anticipated, and he is able to evade them. Everyone clears out after turning out empty-handed, but oh boy are they in for a surprise tonight. That's right, Ramon has finally decided to ascend and make his grand entrance.
That's the one on the TV!
But, no need to fear. Special Officer Doofy here has arrived to save the day. Or I guess just make things even worse since he doesn't even know what the hell brakes are. Oh no, better get out of there, Doofy. That'll teach you to eat my relatives. I've got to take a moment here and really admire the effective usage of both the practical alligator effects as well as the miniature sets and even some real-life gator footage. Sure, maybe the animatronic alligator looks a tad clunky, but considering its limited budget and the movie's age, it looks for the most part pretty damn solid. One really neat trick they pulled that I love was taping the camera to the puppet gator's chin, which gave us this really neat sort of POV shot. Madison and Marissa talk to one of the boys who witnessed the attack and ask him how big the gator he saw was. He describes it as being about the size of a station wagon, but then of course you've got to add the tail. After taking a sculpt of a footprint, Marissa estimates the gator to be around 30 to 40 feet in length. The mayor brings in this goofy hunter guy named Colonel Brock, played by Henry Silva, whom actually voiced Bane on an episode of Batman the Animated Series. So there's a lot of weird shit going on with this guy. First off, he feels the need to tell literally every woman he meets how pretty he thinks they are.
Who is this pretty girl?
Oh,
nice. You're very pretty. But,
He also seems to get aroused by making creepy noises.
And that will attract another alligator?
No, sorry, that was just me coming, actually. The gator makes its way into a pond, and the next day is seen chilling in broad daylight in someone's swimming pool. Somehow, though, this police chopper manages to miss it. After examining some tissue found in the pituitary of the dog at the start of the film, Madison ends up at Slade Pharmaceutical, where he questions Arthur about the experimental hormone that he and his company have been using on their test dogs. Turns out, Slade came up with this growth hormone to be used on livestock, which would help prevent food shortages and provide a more stable system for slaughterhouses and supermarkets. He experimented on dogs primarily, which ended up killing the poor pooches. And if you can see where all this is going, then give yourself a gator bite. So yeah, Ramon got so effing big as a result of feeding on the carcasses of the deceased dogs, which Slade Company had been dumping into the sewer system. Of course, Madison pushes too far by asking about the dog we saw at the beginning, and Big Daddy Slade hits up his old buddy Mr. Mayor, whom gets Madison kicked off the force. Talk about some bullshit. Now, remember when I mentioned why the only reason that scene with the crazy bomb guy and the radio was important was because of something that happens later in the film? Well, this is it. Madison manages to sneak into the evidence room with nobody noticing, and steals the pack of dynamite along with the timer it was attached to. The following evening turns out to be a very eventful one. First, we go to a costume party where these three kids dressed up as pirates are horsing around. The two older boys make the younger one walk the plank, oblivious to what danger lurks beneath the surface of their swimming pool. The mom comes out to check on them, flipping the pool lights on, revealing... They're not gonna do it. He'll be fine. Holy shit, that's terrible. Okay, so I know they're children and all, but would this still count as manslaughter? Later that night, Brock hires a few guys off the street to help him find Ramon.
call it Booger Alley.
Was it named by third graders or something? Apparently, some folks heard heavy breathing coming from the alleyway. Ugh, it was probably just Brock here masturbating behind a building.
The bearers followed the hunter into the lair. They backed him up. Is that right? Not in this jungle, mister. We'll see you on the other side. No backbone? Must be the environment. Amen.
Remember, if money doesn't convince someone, then just go ahead and insult them with racist remarks. Pretty good jump scare there, movie, but not as good as this next one. I swear, Scream needs to address the whole gun jamming cliche in their next movie. Rest in peace, Colonel Brock. Marissa and Madison come up with a plan to track the gator and kill it before it attacks again. We then get what's sort of a neat little action scene where these guys spot the gator swimming in a lake and try to kill it with guns and grenades. It very quickly, however, turns into a Scooby-Doo skit when these dumbasses manage to drive right over the gator's back when it pops up in front of them. Next, we get our obligatory Jaws scene. One guy gets pulled underwater and disappears, and the other is not so lucky either. Now, if you were to only watch a single scene in this entire movie, it would have to be this one. This is not only my favorite scene in this film, but quite possibly one of the best in movie history. Arthur the sleazebag is getting married, however Ramon has come to crash the wedding. First he devours the maid. No, not like that, you sickos. Then slaps a bunch of people through the air with his tail. One guy even flies directly into the cake. Flips over some tables. You know, all kinds of sick shit. Since he's a bitch, Slade pussies out to his van, even leaving his now son-in-law to get eaten alive. The mayor gets cornered by the alligator after being locked out by Slade. See? Even alligators hate politicians. Faced with this new obstacle in the form of a limousine, Ramon decides if it can't eat the limo or the person inside it, he'll just have to get creative. So he basically uses his tail as a wrecking ball. Our two leads arrive just in time to witness the aftermath and realize that the gator is headed back into the sewer. They decide the only way to stop Ramon is to blow his scaly ass to hell. I love this shot also of this random old man just watching in the background. It takes Madison probably about 30 seconds to find Ramon. Here we get to see lots of real alligator footage. And while the size of the gator used here doesn't always match up 100% with the practical alligator shots, it was still quite impressive how they were able to film them in such a manner. Director Louis Teague would later go on to direct the Stephen King adaptation of Cujo, in which he used real footage of St. Bernards mixed with shots of a puppet dog, similar to Alligator. Working with animals on a movie, especially reptiles, can be particularly tedious, but Teague manages to pull it off very well here. Ramon chases Madison through the methane room that he and Kelly encountered at the start of the film. Also, Madison finds out firsthand what it's like to be bitch-slapped by an alligator. Here's hoping he'll have better luck getting the manhole cover open this time. Well, he's fucked. I guess it helps that Marissa hates senior citizens, because she takes charge of the situation, shoving the old woman aside and moving the car just in the nick of time. And we get a nice, gory, exploding alligator, courtesy once again of Mr. Bryan Cranston. Also, I'm about 99% positive that was the old woman's car that we just saw explode. And since we never saw her exit out of the vehicle, I suppose we can add her to the body count. So, happy ending. Madison and Marissa end up together, Madison gets hired back on the force, and the monster is dead. But wait! We have a sequel bait ending coming. And yes, for anybody wondering, there is a sequel, Alligator 2: The Mutation, which is a very confusing title seeing as to how the alligator in this first film was also a mutation. It came out 11 years after the original film, and my memory is a little bit fuzzy about it, but I recall it not being too good. Anyway, maybe I'll take a look at it someday, I don't know. So, that was Alligator from 1980, and It's a lot of fun. While not necessarily a straightforward comedy like Lake Placid, a big part of what makes Alligator work so well is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows its concept is ludicrous and outlandish, and it embraces this. And it's because of this fact that it's really hard for me to classify this movie as a Jaws ripoff, despite it undoubtedly being inspired by that film. Thankfully, Alligator has enough originality with its creature, the urban setting, and comedic undertones that it is able to stand on its own. While I suppose tame by today's standards, the film is not afraid to get gory during its attack sequences and embrace its R rating. If you're a fan of creature features or just B-movies in general, definitely don't skip on this one. Well, that about wraps it up for this one, folks. Please don't forget to follow me on social media. Check us out on Patreon too. Links will be in the description below. I always appreciate your donations. That is basically the bread and butter of what helps this channel grow and allows me to put out more creative content for you guys. So with that being said, be nice to your dogs, otherwise a alligator will come along and eat you. Ciao for now.